Star Citizen is kicking off 2025 with steady progress. With Vulkan Multithreading in development, blockers cleared for 4.0.1, and features like hacking and dynamic weather moving forward, the verse is quietly laying the groundwork for a more refined experience. Welcome back to Last Week in the Verse, where we break down everything shaping Star Citizen and the road ahead. This week, there's a lot of progress to cover. The 4.0.1 patch has officially gone live, bringing a wave of fixes and improvements to stability, gameplay, and performance. After weeks of iteration in the PTU, players can now experience these updates firsthand. During my last few sessions in the game, I've noticed a lot more server degradation and issues seemingly adding up, so I'm particularly excited to see if this patch addresses those concerns. With improvements to server meshing and further refinements to the networking code on the horizon, I'm hopeful that we'll start seeing greater stability in the verse moving forward. We also got the Star Citizen Monthly Progress Report, which highlights updates on Vulkan multithreading and gameplay mechanics like hacking, incremental but significant steps that could improve the overall experience in the verse. And dynamic weather, it's shaping up to add new depth and immersion to the game's environments in the near future. There's plenty to discuss, so let's dive right in. The past few weeks of the PTU testing led up to the release of 4.0.1 to the live servers, bringing a series of fixes and refinements aimed at improving stability and overall gameplay. Now that it's live, we can finally see how these updates hold up in real time. Tuesday's patch kicked off things with updates across multiple areas, including gameplay locations and ship systems. Pyro's Outpost received yet another polish pass, addressing issues like floating loot boxes and other misplaced assets. Bounty Hunter saw the introduction of new faction-specific ArcCorp and Blackjack intro missions, though rewards for several bounty missions were slightly reduced. On the technical side, core improvements like physics network sync and hybrid service optimizations promise better overall performance in the long run. In the same patch, CIG implemented a number of fixes aimed at improving the experience in Pyro and Stanton. Freight elevators that were missing in some cargo missions have been restored, ship power toggles that previously didn't function properly are now fixed, and mission givers like Eckert and Hurston have returned to their correct positions. While several fixes remain speculative, such as elevator panel buttons failing or AI getting stuck in spawn closets during underground facility missions, the continued focus on these issues shows CIG's commitment to smoothing out player frustrations. On Wednesday, the focus shifted to refining Save Stanton Chapter 2 and improving backend systems. Save Stanton received key updates to ensure smoother mission progression. Ship AI in Phase 6 now properly engage players rather than awkwardly floating above the planet's surface, and issues like invisible explosive crates or unmarked objectives in Phase 7 missions have been resolved. One notable change for this event is that its missions remain reputation locked to the faction players are working with. To avoid cross-reputation issues, the missions cannot be shared with other players. I mentioned this in last week's update, and while this makes sense for faction-specific events like Save Stanton, ensuring players can't cheese reputation gains by teaming up with higher rep friends, it does raise questions about how this approach could affect the wider mission system in the future. If reputation locking becomes the norm for standard missions, it could add more depth and immersion to the gameplay experience. But it might also make things more challenging for groups trying to play together. It's an interesting direction, and I'll be keeping my eye on how this evolves as we move forward. Outside of Save Stanton, CIG made a few gameplay adjustments and quality of life improvements. Station turrets received a buff to their aiming prediction, making them significantly more effective at defending key locations. Meanwhile, holographic ship MFDs had their drop shadows removed. An admittedly odd change that I'm not sure why they made. Bug fixes for the day included resolving audio bleed in personal hangars, tweaking Lorville's tutorial spawning issues, and potentially fixing the frustrating problem of salvaged parts not saving properly in ship loadouts. But according to most reports, this is still an issue. Now, these smaller changes might not grab headlines, but they contribute to a smoother overall experience, as I discussed last week. Now, Thursday's patch continued to focus on Save Stanton Chapter 2, refining missions and fixing lingering issues. Mission markers for objectives in Phase 6 and Phase 7 were corrected, and the narrative descriptions for mission locations were adjusted to align with their actual destinations. Additionally, a potential fix was introduced for the Wipeout Locations contract in Phase 6, where extra targets would spawn after eliminating the initial objectives, leading to inflated mission requirements. These updates should help make Save Stanton a more seamless and enjoyable experience for players. Now, in terms of bug fixes, elevators continued their long-running performance as Star Citizen's undisputed arch-nemesis. Now, these, as we all know, aren't newcomers to the role. They've been the divas of the verse for years now, demanding constant attention with missing carriages, buttons that seem to work on their own schedule, and the occasional void waiting to swallow up unsuspecting players whole. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if CIG's bug tracker has a special elevator-only section. Honestly, why not just turn this into a gameplay loop? Let players become the official elevator repair crew of the verse. At least we get some reputation points for all this suffering. And then there are hangars, which have seemed to take lessons from elevators on how to cause maximum chaos. Fixes this week included players timing out in queues for their assigned hangars and turrets turning hostile when your ship dares to slightly nudge someone else's. This actually happened to me recently in my last play session. You have to wonder if CIG's devs are starting to see hangar doors closing in their nightmares, trapping them in an endless loop of hangar timeout messages. At this rate, maybe they should just cut their losses and replace every hangar with open air parking. Just, as always, watch out for pirates and pad rammers. Now, on the ship side, UI readability in the Prospector's mining display was improved, and a fix for damage bypassing fully charged shields was introduced, both of which should help miners and combat pilots breathe a little easier. Let's just hope that elevators and hangars don't decide to join forces and sabotage those efforts next. Finally, Friday's patch capped off the week with even more refinements to Save Stanton Chapter 2, and a mix of gameplay and performance improvements. HUD markers for targets across various missions were fixed, ensuring objectives are properly identified, while mission narratives that previously offered random or misleading location context have been corrected. Save Stanton Chapter 2 continues to evolve as a central feature of 4.0.1, and CIG's consistent updates show their intent to make this event as polished as possible. In addition, the Pembroke and Novikov environmental suits were added to shops at Tressler, Lorville, and Grimhex, giving players easy access to vital survival gear for harsh environments, which there are plenty in Stanton. Performance optimizations were another highlight, with a speculative fix addressing poor responsiveness on Monarchs due to high bandwidth usage, which could help reduce input lag and delays. Meanwhile, fixes for issues like overlapping minimap icons, missing FPS weapon audio in Pyro's contested zones, and derelict outpost doors that wouldn't open at all point to CIG's attention to detail. These updates highlight CIG's commitment to refining Alpha 4.0, and now that 4.0.1 is live, we'll see how these changes impact stability and playability in the coming days. Of course, not every fix is guaranteed to stick, because let's be honest, in the verse, bugs have a habit of coming back with a vengeance. Like a bad sequel that no one ever asked for. But hey, progress is progress, and this week's updates show that even small changes can have a big impact on playability. Now that 4.0.1 is live, the real test begins. We'll see if these fixes hold up under the pressure of a full player base, and whether performance and stability continue to improve in the days ahead. Next, let's discuss some of the biggest highlights from Star Citizen's monthly progress report, and how these updates could shape the future of the verse. After the madness of CitizenCon, you'd think that CIG might have coasted into the holidays to catch their breath. But nope, they've been hard at work tackling dynamic weather, smarter AI, and Vulkan integration like sleep is optional. Honestly, it's starting to feel like they don't sleep at all, which, hey, is impressive. But not as impressive as my own sleep schedule, which is somehow way worse and involves way less productivity. The AI team has been hard at work across multiple areas. They focused on refining social AI behaviors for Alpha 4.0, ensuring that NPCs not only pathfind properly, but also feel like they belong in new stations and outposts. This included extensive playtesting to adjust NPC placement and create meaningful stories for these locations. Dynamic conversations also received attention, with new tech carried over from Squadron 42. To make Pyro and Stanton feel more alive, the team added location-specific dialogue, supported by a small capture session. Now, they've even hinted at referencing in-game events through these conversations. Imagine NPCs reacting to a high-profile mission or a heated battle you took part in. Combat AI also took major steps forward. NPCs now have ammo management behaviors that let them run out of ammo, search for more, or loot fallen enemies, bringing a sense of realism to combat. Medpen-equipped NPCs can revive teammates, which adds extra layer of strategy to firefights. The team also fixed bugs affecting ambush responses and defend area behaviors, making combat encounters more fluid and dynamic. And let's not forget the quasi-grazer. The team introduced animations for grazing, sleeping, and even a charge attack. So if you were planning to provoke one for fun, just know that they now have the ability to retaliate. Now let's talk about hacking. CIG has completed more animation work on this long-awaited gameplay mechanic, and I couldn't be more excited to see it finally introduced. Hacking promises to add a unique layer of depth to missions, allowing players to manipulate systems, unlock doors, or disable key assets. And here's some fun speculation. If hacking makes it into the Q2 patch, it's highly likely that we could see the Anvil Legionnaire be introduced during Invictus. For those unfamiliar, the Legionnaire is a dropship designed for breaching enemy ships and facilities, perfectly paired with hacking gameplay. Once hacking is in, boarding enemy ships, whether NPC or player controlled, could finally become a dynamic and tactical experience. Imagine breaching a ship's defenses through hacking or even using explosive charges to break in, creating intense and memorable gameplay moments. Additionally, CIG has been hard at work on several other upcoming ships, including the Ironclad, Apollo, Perseus, Pioneer, and Starlancer attack. Each of these ships represents unique opportunities for new gameplay mechanics, further enhancing the diversity of experiences Star Citizen aims to deliver. Whether it's breaching enemy vessels with the Legionnaire, engaging in industrial base building with the Pioneer, or flying tactical missions with the Starlancer attack, the future lineup of ships is shaping up to be as varied as the gameplay itself. The groundwork is clearly being laid for a more tactical and team-based gameplay, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds. Arguably the biggest technical milestone for this report is the completion of Vulkan Multithreading support. These updates will allow the game to fully utilize all CPU cores, rather than relying heavily on a single core. This isn't just a small improvement, it's a massive leap forward in terms of performance. Players on multi-core systems, which is pretty much everybody, should see reduced stuttering, better frame rates, and smoother gameplay overall. And while Vulkan hasn't hit the live servers yet, it's already in CIG's internal development builds. If everything goes well, we could see these optimizations as early as 4.1 or 4.2. For those of us who have been suffering through frame drops in dense locations like Area 18 or Orison, some of you might finally stop seeing the game as a slideshow every time that you visit a landing zone. Who knows, your CPU might even get to catch its breath for once, or at least stop screaming for mercy. Dynamic weather continues to evolve as one of my most highly anticipated features, and I can't help but get excited about the possibilities it brings to the verse. The R&D team has been hard at work implementing features like rain accumulation, lightning cluttering, and region-specific weather effects. These aren't just visual flourishes, they're gameplay-altering elements that could truly change how we experience the verse. Imagine storms that not only obscure visibility, but force you to adapt mid-mission, or lightning strikes that introduce an extra layer of danger when traversing certain areas. Volumetric cloud rendering has also seen improvements, reducing visual artifacts during those iconic Star Citizen sunsets. Plus, the weather systems now propagate across gameplay and physics, tying everything together in a way that feels organic and reactive. The thought of weather becoming a key part of the experience, whether it's navigating through a turbulent sandstorm or avoiding the flash of lightning, adds a layer of complexity and immersion that I personally can't wait to see unfold in game. The mission refactor remains a work in progress, but significant strides have been made. With the overhaul of the mission system for server meshing, every mission archetype has to be rewritten. This was of course no small task, but it ensures missions are now more stable and can persist across server boundaries. With that said, there are still bugs to iron out, and some missions have been temporarily removed to prevent frustrating experiences. It's crucial that CIG not only fixes these issues, but also reintroduces the removed missions to restore variety and depth. As always, I'd love to see CIG incorporate rare item rewards into missions. Things like advanced weapons, ship components, or unique gear. These kind of incentives could elevate missions from routine tasks to truly engaging challenges. On the economic front, CIG rebalanced fuel and repair costs to better align with gameplay. Quantum and hydrogen fuel prices now reflect new tank sizes, and repairs to ship hulls are significantly cheaper than component replacements. There's also a new emphasis on making large-scale ordnance like size 10 bombs a financial decision. Gone are the days of casually spamming bombs unless you're ready to pay for it. Core gameplay teams focused heavily on improving stability and performance. They also made more progress on jump points, refining the visuals and mechanics of traversing these interstellar tunnels. Another exciting update is the ability to spawn directly into your persistent hangar, streamlining the login flow and saving players time. Now, as we saw this in an earlier 4.0 build, it's finally back to 4.0.1. And I have to say, it's a very welcome change. As server meshing continues to improve, these quality of life updates will become even more impactful. Finally, the VFX and locations team continued polishing Pyro's contested zones, asteroid bases, and run-down stations. The VFX work on jump points in particular obviously looks incredible, and we've been seeing this in the last few builds. They have come a long way since their initial implementation, and I'm hoping that they continue to refine this and add more visual flair to jump points. I honestly really enjoyed jumping through jump points, and I hope they continue to make them even better looking. 4.0.1 is shaping up to be an important step in refining Star Citizen, but the monthly progress report shows us that CIG is setting the stage for even greater things to come. With features like Vulkan Multithreading promising improved performance and hacking gameplay potentially ushering in thrilling new mechanics, the groundwork for a more polished and immersive experience is clearly being laid. The journey ahead feels more exciting than ever, but as always, there's still plenty of work to do. After all, this is Star Citizen. No matter how many fixes or features CIG delivers, someone somewhere is guaranteed to be shouting into the void of Spectrum about how it's all wrong. But what are your thoughts on all of these updates? Are you excited about features like hacking in Vulkan, or do you think CIG should focus on fixing every elevator and hangar in the verse before anything else? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to start a conversation with you. If you enjoy these deep dives into Star Citizen's development, consider becoming a channel member. Members get exclusive access to Discord channels, early access to videos, and shoutouts in all of my videos. Your support not only helps me create high-quality content, but also gives me some much-needed motivation when dealing with another hangar glitch or shard lock. And before you go, don't forget to check out my latest video exploring the gaming industry's struggles and how games like Star Citizen might be pointing toward a brighter future. I promise it's worth watching, even if it doesn't solve all of the world's elevator problems. Thanks for watching. Fly safe, pilots, and I'll see you in the verse. Havoc out.